Hello, super producers. I believe you guys are getting along well. And today we have another wonderful day to keep on learning on this wonderful program, Studio One. Yes, and if you're a young producer aspiring to be one, maybe you could repeat as many times as possible going through this video so that you may be able to grasp every single idea. Learning at heart is one wonderful thing that I advocate for. And one of the ways you can learn and grab something totally is repeat as many times as you can. Rewind the video, pause where you need to pause, do a few things that you need to do on your DAW if you have one around you. And you'll definitely, at some point, you'll definitely be a guru in some way. All right, so today I thought we should do something a little bit different. Now, what is this different thing? Not so different per se, but I want us to learn something that will now enable us to jumpstart, get into the work now, because we won't remain at the introductory part forever. So what exactly do I want us to do today? I want us to understand, how do you learn about any software? Now, we are going to use Studio One as our base for that. Any program has all these things you're seeing here on top here. Every single program, they all have all these things here. And what is really, really important is understanding how to work around your program, because you could have very many good ideas, musically speaking. You could be having many things that you think you can do with a program, but if you don't know how to navigate about and up and about the DAW that you have, you might think that your program does not do some things, and yet maybe it has everything that you're looking for. So how do you do that? Now, in Studio One, I want to show you something here, something very interesting. We are not going to do everything, but I'm going. Let me just say. Let me put it this way. I'm going to give you a principle on how you can study these programs, and with that, you might not even need to ask anybody any question in the future concerning anything. And remember, in our previous video, we discussed on how we can create our own shortcuts. But I remember saying, you cannot create a shortcut of something you don't understand. You need to understand that particular element that you are creating a shortcut for, or even changing a shortcut. You cannot just change a shortcut and you don't even know the function of that particular shortcut. So the most important thing is, first of all, to understand, if I make these changes, what exactly am I supposed to use with the changes I'm making? So this is what you do. For example, we have tabs on top of the screen here. Now, these tabs have a lot of information hidden in them. Now, believe it or not, 90%, if not 100, and I stand to be corrected, of course, most of the things that you're doing in this program are hidden in these tabs. These tabs are carrying a lot of information concerning this program. For example, when you click on the word file alone, look at the number of drop-down menus that come. We have several things coming in. We have the new song and many other things going on down there. So you've already seen how to save a project, because saving a project is one of the key things. Now, in order for you to save a project, there's Control S. Now, in case you didn't know, now you already know. Now, that's why I was saying many of these things are hidden in these tabs here. Now, these tabs are several. They're not so many, but there's edit, there's song, there's track. There are all these things, yeah? So one thing I believe you've already realized is that any tab I toggle on, there are several things that show up. There are several drop-down menus that show up. Now, in order for you to understand how any program, not only Studio One, but in order for you to understand how any program operates and how it runs, and maybe how the developers intended it to operate, this is one of the things you should commit yourself. Just create some good time and commit yourself to learn to understand what these tabs have inside of them. Some of these tabs might require you to have a file like this one, for example. Some of these tabs might require you to have a file, so that now you also get to understand what they are carrying in the because some of these functions will not work in case you don't have any file selected. So, for example, you can see some of these kind of grayed out drop down menus. What they're trying to tell you is that we we don't have a file to work on. So we are not active right now because we don't have anything that we are meant to do. Paste. This is a very common thing. Control V. Maybe it's the standard. Any computer uses Control V to paste stuff. So these grayed out areas, they're trying to tell you we don't have anything to work on, so we cannot function. Select is right here. We can select all, and you see once I click on select all, it has selected. But of course, there's a shortcut to that. There's a shortcut to that, which is Control what? Which is Control A. So in order for you to understand how some of these things operate, one of the best ways is to go through the tabs. Now, when you're going through the tabs, remember, go also through the drop-down menu. Slowly by slowly, get to understand what each and every item is trying to do. And also try to understand what is really important for you. Once you understand what is so important for you, you might need to, maybe, I don't know, you could work differently from me, but you can write them down. That's what I usually do. You can write them down. And now you can go back to the shortcuts section. And then once you go back to the shortcuts section, you can easily now make the adjustments according to your preference. Because what that basically means is that there are things that you might not really get to touch so much, but it's important for you to understand even what you're leaving out, what it does, what their function is. You are never sure when you are going to need them, so it's important to just know and understand them. In most cases, I believe this is one of the things that you should learn as much as possible. Beside now these other things, because now once you've understood your program, the only thing remaining is your personal creativity. Nobody teaches you creativity. So once you understand how things operate, even I myself, I cannot teach you creativity. You might understand the software, become really, really better than me, and your creativity allows you to do greater music than probably I think I can do. So this is what is important. There are people who don't necessarily, there are people who are not necessarily very creative. Let me put it that way. Yeah, there are people who are not necessarily very creative, but they are very good at their programs. So they understand their programs very well. So that one alone is an advantage because it enables them produce good music, not based on creativity, but based on understanding. They understand their programs really well. So it enables them do great things, and they are able to do a number of good things. Very nice. So once you do that, once you go through all this stuff, I'm guaranteeing you it will not take you long before you are able to produce good stuff without struggle on this particular DAW. I again want to repeat, you don't necessarily need to use everything. You are only using what is important to you. But it's important to understand even what you're leaving outside, what it's supposed to do, because you never know when you're going to need it. So for today, kindly allow me to only mention a small section, a very small section, yes. And this is one of the sections that you might find yourself touching very, very, very many times. Why am I saying you might find yourself touching very, very many times? Doing production in the box, we are always having our mouse on our hands, on our right hands, doing a lot of movements right in here. And what are these movements? These movements are either editing, chopping things off, gluing things, and all these things. So right here, I want to talk about a few tools, just a few tools. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tools. I want to talk about just these 6 tools. I know you can see others ahead here, but for today and for this particular video, I'm only going to talk about these 6 tools, and I'll tell you why these tools are very, very important, especially around 2 or 3. All of them are very important, but I want to talk about around 2 or 3 of them that are very, very important. If you have been a producer before, automatically you understand what I'm saying, because these are tools that we touch almost throughout when we are doing our editing, when we're trying to fix things here and there. These are tools that we touch almost every time. So today we want also to try as much as we can to fix a few things and get to understand what these tools are all about. So any producer will agree with me that you close to throughout need what we call the smart tool. This arrow tool here, this is a very important tool. This is the tool that is meant to do some selections. You click on it, you can drag things up and about. So it is only when you have selected this particular tool that you can do such. You cannot select any other tool and do the same. The function is different. So once I have things, the smart tool selected on in Studio One, it's called the arrow tool. You can easily move up and about. All right. Second on it, there's a single name on it. This is called a range tool. Now, a range tool, you can use it in very many ways. So how I use it mostly, you can select a section, and then once you select a section, you can easily delete something that you don't want in that particular selection. For example, I can select a particular selection like this one here, and then when I hit on delete on my keyboard, you see that part has been deleted. So that's how I select a range. You select a range and then you delete. As simple as that. So from there we have this other tool. This tool is scissors. Now what scissors does, from basic knowledge, scissors, the basic work of scissors is just to chop things off, to cut things. But it only splits, but it doesn't do anything else. So you can split and decide to leave things that way. Maybe it's your way of understanding where things have been positioned, but in most cases you want to split something because you want to get it out. All right, so for example, you can choose split tool and then go to smart tool, click on a particular item and chop it off by deleting. You just click delete and then it goes off. All right, and you could also, on the next tool now, you could also choose to click on this particular item, which is an eraser. An eraser basically is a rubber. You click on it, it just disappears. As simple as that. So it is very easy. I believe by now you must have seen why these things are important. These are the tools we use when you are editing. I'm chopping off that, and then I'm trying to just get the original back. What do we have here? Now, this one is a pen tool. A pen tool has got several options down here. We won't talk about these options today. There are very many. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's several of them. Right now we have what we call the French hand, and then we have the line. So there are several. They have different functions, but one thing you'll realize is that it has overwritten our previous file. So we don't want to overwrite anything for now. So, but that's one of its main purposes. I'll explain in details further what we are meant to achieve with the pen tool. Let's go to the smart tool again. You realize when I delete these things, we still have our initial file. And then this final one, this is a mute tool. This mute tool is a very important tool, because what it does, in case you want to mute a selection or a section, you can just select on it and then click on that particular file. It will mute and unmute. That is the only function that it does. You can mute and unmute by clicking on it. So from the look of things so far, you must have identified the different things that you need. Now let me show you something, because we have 2 more tools before we get to this. These are different section. I believe you can see a line somewhere. This is a different section. It's meant for slightly different functionalities. It's not among the tools, but they're still tools anyway. Let me just explain a bit about this bend tool. This bend tool is meant to stretch things up and about. Depending with the files you're dealing with, you might need to stretch things to time. There are times that you need to align things to fall in place time-wise, and the one tool that can help you do that is the bend tool. But it's always safe not to overdo it, because it becomes very artificial, and when things are artificial, then they really don't sound natural. Of course, that's the opposite. And then last but not least, now this tool is I call it's called a listen tool. What listen tool basically means, when I click from this point here, it's supposed to be playing. I don't know. yeah, it's supposed to be playing. I am certain that is what exactly it's supposed to be doing. From my understanding, I believe that is its main role. Once you place it here, for example, we're supposed to be hearing some voice coming from the file. That's basically what it's supposed to be doing. Maybe there's something I'm doing wrong. I really can't remember, but I'll figure out, and then maybe in our next video I'm going to check exactly what maybe I'm doing wrong. So what it does, this is now what it does, whether it will do it or not. What it does is that once you select this tool and you click and hold a particular section of a file, that file, you are supposed to hear what that file is supposed to be doing from that point moving forward. That's basically what this tool is all about. So as I mentioned earlier on, there are tools that are very important than others because you might be using them more often than others. For example, this smart tool here, you will definitely use this tool more than any other tool, and because you're moving things up and about and doing many other things with it. Now, on this particular tool here, there's a small button. There's a small button, kinda, which is called linking. There's a linking button here. I believe you're able to see link, arrow, and range tools. Once you click this particular section, when you place your mouse, when it's above, let's just put it this way. Let's assume we have two halves. There's this upper side and there's this lower side. When it's past the first half upwards, this tool is different. When it's down here, when it's up here, it's the selection tool, which is the range tool, and when it's down here, it's the smart tool, which is now the arrow tool. So you remember, I'm not clicking anything to change these two because I've linked the two of them. So when it's up here, it's the selection tool. When it's down here, it's the smart tool. All right. So what does it mean? You remember what I said the smart tool does? The smart tool is meant to move things up and about. Okay. That is what the smart tool does. But now when you're using the linked mode, you always must click where you're supposed to click because it won't function how you want it to function if you don't click at the correct position. So for this particular file, if I want to use the smart tool, it has to be above this middle line here. It has to be above. This is where things get different a bit. So the smart tool is, if I select and drag it from the top, I can easily use the smart tool. But if I'm using the lower part, I'm using the arrow tool. Selection tool, arrow tool. Selection tool, arrow tool. As simple as that. So that is how it functions when it's in linked mode. You might need it that way, you might not need it that way. So it's very good because when you're editing, in our next video, we are going to do something small, and then I'm going to put these particular tools into function, and then you're going to understand a few things that you really need to do. And I believe that should be able to help you so much. All right. So on this particular, let's unlink for now, and then I show you something small. On this particular smart tool here, or this arrow tool, you can see a small arrow. What this small arrow down here means is that we have some details hidden in there. So once you click on it, all right, once you click on that particular arrow tool, there are other things that are appearing. What are these things? There's the range tool, there's the split tool, there's the eraser, paint, which are the one? There's mute tool, there's bend tool, there's listen tool. In short, all these other tools have repeated themselves down here. Now, what does that mean? It means this particular tool here can function in two different ways. These are the two different ways I'm trying to talk about. I know this one might be a little bit difficult to get right now, but it is not as difficult as it appears. When you hold on control, click and hold control, select alternative tool. Now, what alternative tool means, for example, is that when I hit control, and for example, let me hit split. All right. When I hold control while the smart tool is selected here, and I hold control, it means this tool has now changed from the arrow tool to a split tool. I hope that one is clear. So this particular function is now serving two purposes, because I've created an alternative tool, which is when I hold control, when this arrow is selected, as long as the arrow tool is selected, when I hold control, this tool changes to a splitter tool. As simple as that. So I can easily chop there. Once I release control, it changes to smart tool, and then now I can click this particular section and maybe click delete. It is very simple. It is not complicated, and you can use that with any other tool. It doesn't necessarily need to be an arrow a split tool. I like using the split tool because these are some of the things I use most of the time. So I can easily select my arrow tool and maybe hold control, click on, let's say, mute. Yes. So once I click here, I hold control, I click on the file, it's muted. I release, it's back to the arrow tool. I click and hold the control again. I click on my file, it's unmuted because the tool has changed to mute and to the mute tool, this mute tool. Now, how do you get to know about that? There's a small blue line here that shows you the alternative tool that you want to work with this particular arrow tool. That's how it works, all right? It is very simple, but it's very straightforward. So I believe that is not too much. And yeah, in our next video, we are going to try record something, maybe a voiceover or something of that sort, and put some of the main tools into action and see what they are capable of doing. I believe with that, we should be able now to understand much better about these tools and many other things that we're supposed to know about Studio One. So I believe that is enough for today. Remember to subscribe. Please don't fail to subscribe. Remember to comment on the comment section. Tell us what you think we should improve on. We are always, as I've always said, we are always willing to make adjustments. So make your requests known, yes, on the comment section, and share the videos. Let many of your friends who are aspiring to be producers get this information out there, and we're going to be happy. That's the best way you can support us. Till next time, goodbye.